So picture a parachute just laid out on a packing table. Like, it is completely deflated.
Just totally flat.
Yeah. Every single nylon panel is meticulously folded, and every suspension line is perfectly stowed so it won't tangle.
And then the whole thing gets tucked away inside this heavy, reinforced container.
Exactly. It is bound up so tightly that nothing can snag it, nothing can tear it. I mean, in this state, the parachute is flawlessly, objectively safe.
Yeah, but because it's so perfectly safe, it's also entirely useless.
Right.
It's doing absolutely nothing it was designed to do.
Right.
Because, a parachute only really functions when it embraces chaos.
Oh, totally. It has to catch the wind.
Catch the wind, take the shock of deployment, expose itself to the elements. Lying on a table, it's just, existing in this state of suspended animation.
And that image, that perfectly packed, tightly bound parachute, that is the exact metaphor for the life of 16-year-old Carys Edwards. Or Clancy, as she goes by.
It really is the perfect way to describe her.
So we are pulling sources today from Tracy Barrett's young adult novel, Freefall Summer. And our mission for this deep dive is to explore this really profound psychological paradox that the story sets up.
Yeah, it's a fascinating one.
We're basically looking at what happens to a person's mind when they grow up in an environment defined entirely by extreme physical risk, but they are kept completely suffocatingly sheltered from any real emotional experience.
And the physical environment doing all that sheltering is Skydive Noxton, which is this bustling drop zone in Missouri.
Yeah, and the text gives us this really interesting backdrop about the reality of the sport itself.
It does, because, skydiving fatalities have actually steadily decreased every single decade since the 1970s.
Which is kind of wild to think about.
Right. I mean, equipment has improved, training protocols are way stricter, so statistically it's actually far safer than the general public imagines.
But I mean, no amount of statistical data erases the fundamental reality, right? You are still exiting an aircraft thousands of feet in the air.
Exactly. The sport is just intrinsically tethered to mortality.
Which brings us to the central irony of Clancy's world. Her father, Dave, actually owns this drop zone.
Yeah, he's the guy running the show.
Right. And every weekend, he confidently straps total strangers into harnesses. He lectures them on trusting the equipment. He preaches this whole gospel of overcoming fear. I mean, he literally pushes people out of airplanes for a living.
He does.
But when it comes to his own 16-year-old daughter, he refuses to let her anywhere near an open airplane door. He claims she lacks decision-making skills.
Which is just, looking objectively at Clancy's behavior in the source material, that justification falls apart instantly.
Oh, completely.
I mean, she is a straight-A student. She organizes the drop zone manifest. She packs parachutes with absolute precision. She exhibits nothing but hyper-responsible, risk-averse behavior.
She is basically the most responsible teenager on the planet.
Exactly. So her father's restriction actually has nothing to do with her decision-making abilities. It has everything to do with his own inability to manage potential loss.
And I really want you, the listener, to think about your own life for a second. Think about a time when someone in your life tried to protect you with such an incredibly heavy hand that it stopped feeling like love and started feeling like a cage.
It's a very specific kind of suffocation.
It really is, you know?
Yeah.
When someone else's anxiety basically dictates all your boundaries.
And to understand the architecture of that cage for Clancy, we have to examine how her dad, Days, filters his reality.
Oh, man, yes.
He operates under this intense illusion of control, and it manifests in a deeply eccentric coping mechanism when it comes to his dating life.
Bizarre is the word I would use.
Yeah, he puts potential partners through this very specific psychological gauntlet.
I'm so glad we were talking about the beef stroganoff test because this detail just stopped me in my tracks.
It's wild.
When Dave brings a woman home for a first date, the routine never changes. He cooks beef stroganoff.
And he makes his teenage daughter sit at the table with them.
Which is awkward enough, right? But then he forces the date to watch this highly curated family video.
And the sequencing of this video is so deliberate. He starts with a home movie of Clancy at 4 years old, wearing this miniature pink jumpsuit at the drop zone.
It sounds cute, but...
Right, but then she marches up to a terrified first-time jumper and asks, "Can you smell it?"
Oh my gosh.
And when the confused jumper says no, 4-year-old Clancy screams death, stomps her foot, and yells "whump."
Which, I mean, that is a lot to process over dinner on a first date.
just a little bit.
But the video then abruptly shifts to a local news report featuring Clancy's late mother, Jenna.
Yeah, Jenna was part of an elite skydiving demo team called the Sky Witches.
And the clip shows her jumping into this crowded rock concert, suffering a major malfunction, and having to cut away her main parachute dangerously close to the ground.
Very close. She deploys her reserve canopy with barely a second to spare.
And the news reporter on the tape treats it like this near-death miracle, right? But Jenna just dismisses him on camera, joking that she was mostly worried about breaking a fingernail.
And Dave just sits there and observes his date's reaction to this footage. He's secretly grading them.
The grading system is so messed up.
It is. Anyone who reacts with a classic non-jumper cliche, asking, why jump out of a perfectly good airplane? They automatically receive an F.
Right.
In skydiving terminology, these outsiders are called woofos, and Dave will just never call an F grade back.
Wow.
Yeah, and a polite comment about looking exciting earns a B.
Okay, wait, I need to pause here because the hypocrisy is just staggering. To get an A on this bizarre test, the woman actually has to go to the drop zone the very next weekend and jump out of a plane.
Yep, she had to jump.
So he actively pressures women he barely knows to throw themselves into freefall to prove they are worthy of his affection. Yet his own daughter is bubble-wrapped and forbidden from doing the exact same thing.
What's fascinating here is the psychological dual filtering at play.
Okay, tell me more about that.
Dave is basically weaponizing the extreme risk of his environment. He uses the drop zone as a sieve to locate a partner who won't flinch at his trauma.
I see.
Someone who accepts the very sport that killed his wife. So by making them jump, he forces them to validate his world.
Right.
But simultaneously, he isolates Clancy from that identical environment to ensure she never triggers a new traumatic event.
So he's managing his profound fear of loss by controlling the women in his life through entirely opposite extremes.
Exactly. Demanding physical risk from romantic partners while demanding absolute stasis from his child.
Wow. And the source material provides this brilliant piece of drop zone vocabulary that captures Clancy's existence so perfectly.
Oh, hi, dirt diving.
Yes. Skydivers use this technique called dirt diving. Before getting into the plane, a group will literally stand on the ground and physically rehearse the entire skydive.
Right. They walk through the formations, they practice their grips.
They simulate the exact timing of the free fall while safely standing on solid earth. And Clancy's entire adolescence is essentially a dirt dive.
That's such a good way to put it.
Her dad is forcing her to go through the motions of growing up, rehearsing life on the ground, but she is never, ever permitted to actually take flight.
Because leaving the ground means confronting the reality of what happened to her mother.
Yeah.
That is the trauma anchoring Dave's obsessive control.
Yeah.
Jenna died in a skydiving accident when Clancy was only 6. And Dave's coping strategy is complete avoidance. He just simply refuses to speak about it.
But Clancy has developed this clandestine ritual to process her own fragmented grief.
She has.
Every few months, whenever she gets this overwhelming, itchy sense of anxiety, she waits until she is entirely alone.
And then she opens her laptop.
Yeah, she opens her laptop and watches this shaky, overexposed YouTube video of her mother's final jump. It was filmed from the ground by Jenna's best friend.
And analyzing the text description of that fatal jump provides really crucial context for the narrative because skydiving operates on the laws of physics, not magic.
Right.
The sequence of events that day was a cascading, catastrophic failure. Jenna exited the aircraft and experienced what is known as a bag lock.
Okay, what is that exactly?
The deployment bag containing her main parachute snagged, so it just failed to open fully. Now, she reacted perfectly, flipping onto her back to disrupt the airflow and force the bag open, but it remained jammed.
And you can actually hear her best friend screaming from the ground on the video, just begging her to cut away.
Yeah, it's horrific.
So Jenna pulls the red release handle on her harness, which is designed to completely detach the malfunctioning main canopy so she can safely deploy her reserve.
And then the primary failure compounded into a secondary failure. The main canopy detached, but it physically tangled around her.
Oh, God.
And because she was in a high-speed malfunction, her altitude was disappearing at a terrifying rate. This triggered her automatic activation device, or AD.
Yeah.
Right. It's a small computer inside the parachute container that calculates barometric pressure and descent rate. If a jumper is falling at terminal velocity below a critical altitude, the AED automatically fires a small cutter that deploys the Silver Reserve parachute.
But the tragedy is in the microscopic timing here.
Exactly.
Because the exact fraction of a second the AAD forcefully deployed the reserve parachute, the tangled main canopy finally caught air and inflated.
So the two parachutes collided. They twisted around each other into this spiraling configuration the text describes as a deadly candy cane.
A streamer of pink and white nylon spinning violently toward the ground.
Yeah. And in that specific configuration, neither canopy can inflate enough to slow the descent. She was out of altitude, out of time, and out of options.
So she suffered a fatal impact. Or, in the bleak terminology of the drop zone, she went in.
She went in.
Okay, let's unpack this button of knowledge that Clancy is carrying, because there is a very specific drop zone tradition mentioned in the text that makes this even heavier.
The rigger tradition.
Right. If your equipment fails, you cut away, and your reserve parachute saves your life, tradition dictates that you buy the rigger who packed that reserve a bottle of liquor.
It's a celebration of the fail-safes actually working.
But the text underscores this chilling absence in that tradition. There is no established protocol, no ritual to follow when the reserve does not save you.
None at all.
And Clancy studies the sport. She has this notebook where she logs safety rules and statistics. She knows the data proves that almost all skydiving fatalities are the result of human error.
Right, like someone trying a dangerous maneuver too close to the ground or failing to pull the cord in time.
Exactly, but her mother was an expert, an elite jumper who did everything mechanically right in those final seconds.
Every procedure, perfect.
So how does a teenager build a worldview around the fact that you can possess elite skill, follow every single rule, execute the emergency procedures perfectly, and still die because of random, chaotic bad luck?
Well, that realization is profoundly destabilizing. Because if her mother's death was dictated by random physics rather than a lack of skill, then safety itself is basically an illusion.
Wow, yeah.
If catastrophic bad luck can strike an expert, then Dave's suffocating tyrannical control over Clancy's life offers zero actual protection. It's just theater.
It's just making him feel better.
Exactly. But Clancy hasn't fully internalized that yet. Her immediate, ingrained response to her father's fragility is compliance. So she curates her life to be as non-threatening and predictable as possible.
Which brings us to her boyfriend, Theo.
Oh, Theo.
Theo is the human embodiment of the safe choice. I mean, he is a polite, handsome lifeguard from Alabama who calls her dad sir and opens car doors.
But his version of safety is insidious, It's this performative protection that actually just limits her.
Totally. Like, the text highlights the scene at the Passion Pit, which is this wooded area where local teenagers hang out.
Right.
Theo brings a thick quilt to lay on the ground, and he explicitly states he brought it to protect Clancy from getting chigger bites.
Which sounds so thoughtful until you look at what he's actually doing. While they are sitting on this bug-proof quilt, he begins pressuring her to have sex.
And his reasoning is just wild.
It is. He's abruptly leaving for the entire summer. He accepted a job as a counselor at an outdoor adventure camp in Idaho, completely abandoning their plans.
And if you look closely at the nature of that camp job, Theo's hypocrisy becomes glaring.
Oh, yeah.
He is traveling to Idaho to guide whitewater kayaking, lead rock climbing expeditions, and explore caves.
He is actively seeking out extreme physical risks. The exact category of activities Dave explicitly forbids Clancy from experiencing.
Exactly. So he expects her to stay behind in Missouri, safely tucked away on her metaphorical packing table, while she takes a massive emotional risk for his benefit.
Right. He wants physical intimacy so he can feel connected to her while he leaves to go live an adventurous life.
It's so selfish.
Theo really just represents the illusion of safety. He wraps her in a quilt to protect her from insects, which is socially acceptable, low-stakes protection. But he demands emotional vulnerability while offering zero stability or compromise in return. He really treats Clancy like a placeholder.
But then, the ultimate foil to Theo walks onto the drop zone in the form of an 18-year-old college intern named Denny.
Denny is such a great contrast.
He enrolls in the accelerated Freefall course, and he isn't doing a tandem jump strapped to an instructor. AFF means he is learning to deploy his own canopy and jump solo.
And Clancy's feeling so stifled by her high school existence at this point that she casually lets Denny believe she is also in college.
Yeah. But Denny's motivation for taking the AFF course really shatters Clancy's preconceived notions about risk.
Because he is physically terrified of the airplane.
He's not an adrenaline junkie at all.
Not even a little bit. He isn't seeking a rush. He eventually confesses his real reason. His best friend, Frederick, has severe leukemia and recently underwent a grueling bone marrow transplant.
And they had a pact to learn to skydive together.
Exactly. So Denny is spending thousands of dollars to throw himself out of a perfectly good airplane while his friend is trapped in an immunocompromised, sterile hospital room.
Man.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, Denny is engaging in a proxy jump. Medical trauma, especially watching someone you love suffer from an illness you cannot control, it creates a profound sense of helplessness.
Oh, absolutely.
Denny cannot fight the leukemia. He cannot absorb Frederick's physical pain. So he seeks out an extreme physical risk that he actually can control.
That makes so much sense.
He is forcing his nervous system to process sheer terror, using the mechanics of skydiving to externalize his internal emotional panic. He is leaping into an intimidating void to stand in visceral solidarity with a friend facing the void of mortality.
Which is so powerful. And I have to ask, is Clancy actually the risk-averse, fragile girl her father insists she is? Or is she just terrified of being the final thing that breaks her father's sanity?
It's definitely the latter.
Right. She sees Denny leaning completely into his terror to honor his friend. She sees Theo abandoning her for sanctioned outdoor adventures. She sees her father hiding from his grief behind a wall of drop zone rules.
The cracks in her perfectly packed existence are definitely starting to show.
Big time.
She is beginning to recognize that her commitment to safety is really merely a mechanism for carrying everyone else's unmanaged emotional baggage.
Wow.
She is the designated shock absorber for her father's trauma and her boyfriend's ego.
And the moment this realization fully solidifies is just brilliant because it happens in the most remarkably mundane teenage setting imaginable.
A high school party.
Exactly. Her dad thinks she is homesick with a stomachache, but she sneaks out to a party, and she wanders into a back room where a group is playing a game of strip Scrabble.
Which is a game that inherently blends academic knowledge with adolescent vulnerability.
It is the ultimate test of Clancy's persona. She sits down at the table and just demonstrates absolute, unshakable academic dominance.
Or she crushes them.
It's her turn. She looks at her letters, and she plays the word sherd. S-H-E-R-D.
A perfectly valid variant of shard, meaning a fragment of broken pottery.
Of course she knows that word. And a guy named Brian challenges her play, loses the challenge, and is forced to strip down to his boxers.
Yep.
But Clancy keeps all her clothes on because her vocabulary is simply too advanced for the room. It's a hilarious moment, but the victory feels incredibly hollow to her.
Right, because she proved she is the smartest, most sensible person in the room, but she also proved she is utterly impenetrable.
And that hollow feeling really crystallizes during a conversation immediately following the game. She sits on a couch next to Amity, who is this beautiful and highly popular girl.
And Amity casually admits something pretty insulting.
Yeah, she admits that her incredibly strict mother only allowed her to attend this party because she found out Clancy was going to be there.
Amity's mother views Clancy as the ultimate prudent chaperone.
Which is just, ugh. And that singular comment triggers this huge epiphany.
The text utilizes a classic optical illusion to explain Clancy's internal monologue here. The image that can be perceived either as a white candlestick in the center or two black profiles facing each other on the edges.
Oh, right, where your brain usually locks onto one image and struggles to see the other simultaneously.
Exactly. It's entirely about where you focus your attention.
Right.
And Clancy realizes she is entirely trapped within the rigid perceptions of the people around her. Her father looks at her and sees the candlestick, something delicate, fragile, purely decorative, and easily broken.
Wow, yeah.
But her peers, like Amity and her mother, look at her and see the two faces, a solid, unshakable, utterly predictable block of stone.
So what does this all mean for someone who has spent 16 years dirt diving her own life?
Well, she realizes she fiercely rejects both perceptions.
Exactly. She doesn't want to be the fragile artifact her father hoards, and she doesn't want to be the boring, reliable chaperone her friends use for cover.
And she recognizes that adhering to their rules hasn't insulated her from pain anyway.
No. Theo still abandoned her. Her mother is still gone. The safest, most tightly packed parachute in the world is still useless if it never leaves the table.
She has to do something completely unpredictable to break the illusion.
She does. She understands that claiming agency requires exposing herself to the very risk her father dedicated his life to shielding her from.
It is no longer about adolescent rebellion. It is a psychological necessity.
Yeah. She has to step onto the airplane, not to spite him, but to prove to herself that she can survive the free fall.
Absolutely.
We've traced the architecture of a remarkably complex protective bubble today. We've looked at how the mechanical failure of a parachute decades ago created an emotional vacuum that trapped a teenage girl, and how she finally marshaled the courage to pierce that bubble.
It really prompts a necessary self-reflection for anyone navigating their own rigid routines. Take a hard look at the protective bubbles operating in your own life. Are you actively choosing your safe, predictable path because it brings you fulfillment? Or are you simply carrying the weight of someone else's unresolved fear?
That is such a good question. And I want to leave you with one final thought from the drop zone to mull over. In skydiving, there is a strict safety protocol known as the wave-off.
Right?
Before a jumper reaches back to deploy their parachute, they are required to cross their arms in front of their chest and wave aggressively.
It signals to any other jumpers in the immediate airspace that a canopy is about to deploy.
Giving everyone a few seconds to track away and avoid a high-speed collision, it is a clear, visible warning that everything is about to change.
Yeah.
But when we decide to step off the edge in real life, when we finally decide to take that massive emotional risk and shatter the comfortable, heavily rehearsed routines we've built, there is no wave off.
Yeah.
You cannot warn the people around you that you are about to become something new. You just have to locate the cord, pull it, brace yourself for the opening shock, and hope the people who truly love you will look up and understand why you had to jump.